So it's important to be teacher-led. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that the teacher's doing the work. No, education, the student does the work, but the teacher's saying, this is what you need to work on. I'm going to show you what this means, and now you need to work to master that.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You are in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and you've got the core four with you today, Paul, Tanya, and Martin.
Martin appears to be reading.
Oh, no. Martin.
Is something else going on here?
Want to join us? What are you working on over there?
I came prepared this morning, unlike I'm sure you all, because I know what questions are going to be asked, and I have notes here. And
It's only taking you 4 years to find out that we're going to ask what we're reading.
And I can't find it.
Martin, have you opened any new books lately? What are you reading?
Well, that's what I was looking for. I am reading, I just started this, Small Town Girls. Have you heard of this book?
No.
Okay. Why can't I find it here? So on Sunday afternoons, I sit on my porch and I read the entire review section of the Wall Street Journal because it's got book reviews. And I come across this review of this book, and I was looking for the lady's name. She wrote Night Watch, which won the Pulitzer Prize.
I've heard of that, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, and this is her memoirs of this growing up in this small town in the West Virginia mountains. And it's just that, with the festivals that they have, and, because she's grown up, I guess, in the 50s and 60s. And I just love stuff like that. That's just authentic about a small community or something. And just real life in America, 50, 60, 70 years ago. I just think
Is
that's
it good?
Cool stuff. I've just read the first couple chapters and I love it. Yeah, it's just she's really concrete in the way she describes things, and it's very poetic in that respect. And she just her whole thing is preserving the stories of her community. She lives, I think she still lives there, and it's beautiful.
Sounds good.
Tanya?
I am finishing. I think I have 3 more chapters left in A Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I am close. And I had gotten the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon on audio because people said the reader is so good. And I put the first one, I had it in my car when Michelle and I went yesterday to Cleveland to visit Heritage Classical Academy.
You've been on the road a lot. It's okay.
I'm very tired. But we had a wonderful visit, but we never turned on the audiobook because we just chatted 6 hours there, 6 hours back. But it was a wonderful visit. We had a great time.
But I have heard that the audiobook is fantastic.
Yes. Well, I started it this morning on my commute. What?
I had a very similar experience with Michelle.
With an audiobook?
A month ago. No, well, it was a 6-hour drive one way, 6-hour drive back the next day, and we did not. There was not any quiet in the car. Yeah. And I mean, now granted, she would say I filled part of that time with talking to vendors about GPS collars for my cows. But there's no time in the car with Michelle for an audiobook.
I'll remember that.
Except for when we were at Heritage Classical, she did tell them about your book recommendations. And the one that got where she was with the young men in the schools division in the van, and you had recommended a James Lee Burke book. And there was a questionable scene in there. And she was like, okay, boys, just keep your eyes on the road. How mortified she was to be in that van with those 2 young men that she didn't, weren't part of her family or anything, just work colleagues. As things got
Martin's recommendations
sultry.
Hey, she's read more of James Lee Burke than I have.
I love James Lee Burke, but not in a group. And I would only recommend him to, solid adults.
Reader.
Solid adults.
Yeah, right.
I'm about a quarter through the Odyssey.
Are you?
Well, yeah, we're all supposed to be reading that.
Oh.
Core 4.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we got to prepare because we have to read it by June.
We have an episode coming up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But you can get we sell the Samuel Butler translation.
Yes. Is that what you're reading?
Yes. And you also, Libby has the Samuel Butler translation on audiobook.
Oh, that's nice.
I have both going, which is nice because it is the sort of, there's a lot of people.
There's so many. I always have to make a map of people.
Well, I was working on that yesterday actually. And, but anyway, it's nice to do the audio and the book together.
It is. I like to do that with a difficult book as well. Mm-hmm. So are we supposed to read the Butler translation or does it matter?
I don't think it matters for our discussion.
I just was reading the one we sell. So.
Right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
But sometimes if we've read it, it's nice to then go get a different translation.
That's true.
Yeah.
How about you?
I finished The Seahawk by Sabatini, so I picked up The Ministry of Fear by Graham Greene, which I had started on vacation.
Right.
And I don't know why something else, I had to start reading something else and I had dropped it. And picking up a book when you haven't read it for a couple of months, I had to go back and read the last chapter and remind myself,
you can't even.
But I'm just in kind of a different spot. And so I was really enjoying actually getting back into it. Mm. So I think I was feeling a little bit more like I was trudging through it before. And now I'm like, ooh, this is great.
Yeah. Plus, you were on vacation before looking for light reading, and Graham Greene's not light.
And the name of the author of Small Town Girls and Night Watch.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah, Jane Ann Phillips is her name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never heard of her, but I have heard of that Night Watch book for some reason.
Yeah, that's Pulitzer winner.
Mm-hmm. On to a listener question. Nathan wrote us at our podcast inbox, podcast@memoriapress.com, and we wanted to put his question out to the group. He says, my wife and I both speak French. He's a French high school teacher. We both attended French immersion schools in Canada. We would like our son to learn French alongside the Memoria Press classical curriculum. What are your recommendations?
Well, I would say, first of all, if both parents have gone to an immersion school, your French should be good enough that you can spend time speaking in French in your home, right? I would imagine this is a bilingual home. I mean, I lived up there for 4 years and there were a lot of bilingual homes. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would think would be that your children would be getting a head start by being able to speak both. Then the question becomes, you need to make sure that they learn the spelling, the grammar of that language, right? Because they'll be able to speak it. And I've met plenty of people that can speak multiple languages but can't spell worth a darn in any of them.
Sure.
Or read.
Right? And so, I mean, alongside our curriculum, I mean, what it is you're basically saying you're going to be learning Latin and your English grammar in our curriculum. That's going to be robust. You just need a French grammar course alongside it if they have the facility with speaking in order to make that stuff clear in the same way we're doing in English. And the Latin's going to help them with that, especially the derivatives that are also going to apply in French, but also all the grammar knowledge. And so it should be something, it's probably going to take about the same amount of time as your English, though. Mm-hmm. A little bit less.
But there's no rush through it either. I mean, whatever you get done is going to be great. And there will be similarities between the Latin grammar and the Greek grammar. And I am in bad shape today. I'm tired. The Latin grammar and the French grammar. Mm-hmm. When I looked at our French course, I remember thinking, well, this is similar to Latin. That makes that point.
Yeah, it's very similar. And a lot of times these sorts of questions are tough because where is this child going to be immersed? Where they live, it will not be hard for them to give their child experiences and chances to go use the French.
That's what I was thinking. If they're in Canada. Mm-hmm.
Especially that area of Canada, there's plenty of French opportunities that they can, because the main thing for mastery at some point is going to be usage, right? That they can think in this language. Mm-hmm. And so...
Do they still live in Canada, do you think?
They didn't say.
Oh.
Said he was in school in Canada, but...
Well,
they didn't give us... We need more personal information.
I'm sure it's safe with us.
Oh. Well, Nathan, we hope that's helpful to you. On to the main topic of today's show. Last week, we talked extensively about the content of classical education. We talked about great books, the tradition, but how we teach, the method, is just as important as what we teach. So today, we wanted to talk about the methods we use with classical education. And I don't know about you, but I encounter a lot of common, maybe misunderstandings or misperceptions about the method. So I thought we could talk through some of those. And I want to start with the student's experience if they're being classically educated, because I think in some senses it can get a bad rap. For example, I hear from some people, well, but for the student, classical education is just all memorization. It's grammar forms and maps and timelines and people. What do you have to say to that? Because it's definitely a component. It's part of the method.
It is part of the method. That drill and kill did give it a bad rap with progressive educators, which Martin and Cheryl worked hard to fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to get it into your brain. And memorization is probably the chief technique, at least initially, of doing that. And, I think a lot of the criticism of memorization comes, well, all of it comes from adults. I don't hear much of it from children. My kids took it for granted. I mean, they like it, actually.
Yes, and they drive you crazy when they learn something, wanting to repeat it and
it's something, they're young at first, and so they want something straightforward that they can do. And memorization is not hard to do. I mean, the process of it is not hard to do. And so it's concrete, and they can grasp that. And my kids had fun with that. So I think, an adult's looking at it and thinking, if I'm doing that now, I'm not going to enjoy it very much. Well, that's because you're an adult. You're not a child, and you know stuff already, and they don't. And there's a way they've got to get it in their brain. So there's not something authoritarian about memorization.
No, but it is, for adults teaching it can get quite tedious and boring, but it is not to the children. And ultimately, anything that the student memorizes, they own. It intrinsically becomes a part of them. And scripture, beautiful poetry, all of that makes a difference in who they are, who they become. And it gives them these gifts that they've got with them always. Because if they don't have to look things up. If they've got it already memorized. We're not just memorizing facts.
I might make a slight distinction there, going right off of what you just said. They're not just memorizing facts. But I have encountered children who have memorized stuff completely outside of context, and it's not becoming a part of them because they don't know what any of it is. And so
they're not getting the
there's
context.
no lesson that went with it, right? That explained to them what they're memorizing. Like I remember memorizing The Raven.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, I don't know why that was
Edgar
chosen.
Allan Poe?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
I love Edgar Allan Poe. Probably that was part of it, right? Like I sat there and memorized The Raven, and I thought this is fascinating. But I remember it being taught, right? Like this is what's going on in this poem before I had to memorize 2 pages of poetry, however long that was. I remember being long. And I remember actually having to work at that. But I remember in middle school when we would, the English teacher would give us a poem memorized about once a month, whether it was Keats or whatever. And he would write it on the board from his memory. And then he would go through it line by line, explain to us what this poem was talking about, and then we would be asked to memorize it. And it's the same thing we do in our classrooms, right?
Oh yeah, it's it's necessary. That is necessary.
Yeah, and so the memory part is something that's helpful for the student. It's for a myriad of reasons, but that memorization being something that maybe it was explained to them and they didn't actually understand it, but they're going to memorize it anyway. And that's valuable because actually memorizing it will help whatever was presented to them kind of start to make sense. But it can't be presented fully in a vacuum. I think that's where the drill and kill comes from, is the student doesn't understand what the cases are of Latin, but we just have to go through the declensions.
That's right. That's a good, like the cases when we just memorize them in order. But we also stop and talk about that the nominative case is the subject case, and we give English examples of it. We don't just say, okay, memorize nominative,
genitive. You apply them. I mean, you first memorize them so you know what they are, and then you use them and to translate. And I think kids like that. It's a mechanism, and they're learning this simple mechanism to translate a word, and it's helpful to them. I was going to say, once they see the use of it, then they like it. I think they like it anyway.
I do think they like it anyway. They do just like to acquire knowledge.
They do. And to be able to show you what they know is really important too. That's why we start, our primary grades with that recitation every morning, is to show them, look how much you know when you can answer these facts that are simple facts. But they love the repetition. They want to be asked every day.
Well, but at some point, right, where they may have memorized in class, these are the 7 days of the week, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But at some point, right, in their daily lives, they will be using that to a point where it's not just something that they can answer to the question, but the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they actually know what those things are and what they mean, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at, because you even see that like in kindergarten, right? Like,
well, with the copybooks, so they're memorizing random scripture verses every week and copying them, but we always read the Bible story connected to the verse so that they do understand the context of where that verse comes from and its meaning within the biblical story, starting as early as when you're 5.
There's always context, and to Martin's point, application.
Yes.
For when we can, in an appropriate way.
That's right, which is another reason for a connected, cohesive curriculum, is because we are working toward something with everything that we do.
Another aspect, I think, when it comes to applying the method of classical education, I think I've heard from some people, they think our students just all day long sit passively in the classroom and get lectured to. Would you say, is that part of the method? I do hear that. And in some sense, you have to get content into their brains somehow, and they have to be quiet. But is it not interactive?
This is ridiculous. You're lecturing to kindergartners. Nobody lectures to kindergartners. Okay. It can't be done. I mean, you're engaging in some activity. Yeah. That usually is, many times is tactile, or is a tactile kind of language, whatever. And you're applying these things that they've memorized. And where does the lecture thing come in? I don't even get that. Show me a class that does that.
I think because in a well-ordered classroom, our students are raising hands to answer questions. So if you go through and tour, you could see, you're going to see the teacher up front all day long.
But she's not lecturing.
If you stay in there long enough, you're also going to see the students engaged and answering questions and having discussions and conversations about what they're studying.
And writing on whiteboards and holding them up or
at the board writing down.
And what they're seeing is order. Students like order. They don't like when things are just a random, chaotic mess. And I think that's what they don't like. People say they don't like it. No, I'm sorry.
That's interesting. Yeah. And we know, if you've ever had a child or been around one, the setting clear parameters for them.
Yes. It's security.
They crave it in a sense. They don't know that.
What I was going to say, it's security. They feel secure when there's an orderly environment and they know the kind of lesson that's coming next and they know they can count on it. And if there's never any rules, and it's just chaotic, they do not like that. That's what they don't like.
But one other thing, too, though, is that the teacher as an adult actually knows what the students need in a way the students don't know, right? A child does not know what they don't know, right? The teacher knows that. So it's important to be teacher-led. That doesn't mean that the teacher's doing the work. No, education, the student does the work, but the teacher's saying, this is what you need to work on. I'm going to show you what this means, and now you need to work to master that, right? And I'm going to give you exercises to help you master that and all those sorts of things. So it very much is teacher-directed, but it is not nonstop lecture.
That's right.
And actually, we use oodles of questions, right? Like that's probably the main method when the teacher is presenting information is questioning, because the teacher will present information, but then we'll be questioning the students about it to see what they've gotten and to help them process it and help them assimilate it. And so it's
very interactive.
It's very interactive and very question-based.
Which is interesting because one of my thoughts, or one of the things I hear from people is, well, part of classical education is just really difficult content. And in some ways, we're giving students what they need through the teacher to rise to the occasion and help them understand.
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing is worth doing unless there's a challenge to it, right? Like if it's super easy, why would then
you don't need
to
be there,
right? And you don't need to work at it. You don't need to, right? I mean, education is about raising you up to something. That means there has to be something above you that you're being raised up to, right? And that's why there is the difficult content, is because by struggling with that difficult content, then not only are we mastering that content, but we're also gaining skills to be able, anything hard that we need to learn is within our grasp.
And as we're presenting material to students, and the point of the many questions that we ask is to make sure that they are grasping the material and that they are engaged in the learning process actively and not just passive learners. When I was in school, I went to a terrible public high school, but I did really well in those classes where the teacher just stood up there and droned on, because I would just write down everything they said, memorize it, and then make an A. But I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't invested. I wasn't personally invested. I didn't have to be. I could just memorize whatever came out of their mouths. I didn't have to. It was a terrible waste of my teenage years, really. It was a waste.
Because there is a difference between learning how to get a good grade and learning the content.
Yes, and I learned how to get a good grade very well in high school, but when I got to college, it didn't work.
Right.
I was very fortunate, to go to a very good liberal arts college where I really figured out then what it was to have that relationship, that student-teacher relationship that imparted knowledge but required me to actively participate in that.
I do think that when we talk about the difficulty of content, right? Like, I mean, for us to ask a seventh grader to read the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? Or, even for high schoolers they spend half their year on Anna Karenina, right? Or to do AP chemistry or AP physics, right? All of those are good things for them. It stretches them. But also, I do think there's that difficulty also probably eliminates a lot of the problematic behaviors in a school, because they don't have the energy to be or the time to be thinking about, well, let me go get, make this awful decision as a teenager. And so there's a nice byproduct there.
It's a constraint.
And all your energy is being put towards something constructive, as opposed to saying, no, well, you don't need to work that hard. And then all of a sudden we got energy that's kind of sporadically untethered and getting pushed out in unhelpful ways.
Students don't respect a program that isn't rigorous in the kind of way we're talking about. And if they don't respect it, they they do other things to express their disrespect. And,
well, that's true. And especially the age that you're talking about, that matters. And it also matters that they see all their other students in their cohort going through the same experience. And that is a forcing function hard. Too for students when they see their classmates putting in the same effort.
Yes.
When it comes to how, who classical education is for, I hear people say things like, well, but is this method only going to work for gifted students?
Well, I think, Cheryl Swope put that to rest with her Simply Classical curriculum and with her book, Simply Classical, A Beautiful Education for Any Child. And Michelle and I talked about that a little bit on our drive yesterday about how where we were talking about it with the administration at Heritage Classical Academy that we were with also, is that as long as students are progressing, you can ask difficult things of them, but you just need to make sure that they are progressing. They don't have to progress at the same level as their neighbor or their sibling, but they just need to be progressing. And so some students do need to move slower and do need that extra, like say you get out of second grade and you're still struggling to read, you need to read more books than on that level rather than just moving forward. And so it is for everybody, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to reach the same height. And that's okay. Whatever they do is going to be valuable and it will educate them and enrich their lives. And ultimately, what we hope for is to turn them into virtuous people.
And an example is coming to mind, Martin, that school you went to in North Carolina that used the direct instruction method.
Roger Bacon Academy.
Yes. And that it was, because that was more of an inner city school, right?
They do have an inner city campus.
Yeah. And at the inner city campus, like they were taking the stuff that we do in memorization and recitation, right? That it's a regimented, we're all standing up, hands aside. They were taking that and it was almost even more dialed up.
Yes.
And those kids were thriving in it, right?
Which is so interesting because I know we also hear what you're saying is too rigid.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And there's a sense that
but actually that rigidity helps all students.
You go into one of the classrooms, that's Frederick Douglass, I think, and you go into those classrooms and those kids are having so much fun with that order because there's these chants going back and forth. It's extremely regimented and the kids love it.
Because they're successful.
Because they're successful. They know what's going on. It's a comfort to them to know that they know what to do and they do it. And it's joyful. If you look at the interaction between the teacher and the kids, it's joyful.
And we saw it at Savannah Classical Academy the first time we visited. Those kids were reciting declensions and conjugations, and they were reading the Odyssey. And I said to the head of the Latin department, so these your parents are bought in because it is an inner city school. The parents are bought into classical education. And she said, no, they have no idea what their kids are doing.
Yeah.
They no idea what is going on. It was beautiful, I thought. I was just amazed at the order and the structure and the knowledge that the students were gaining.
Right.
Well, at Frederick Douglass, I remember standing at the back of that classroom and thinking, they are saving these kids' lives. Because a lot of them have only one parent. They're poor. They're in the inner city. They're surrounded by, bad influences, and here they are in this classroom. And it's probably their favorite time. Yeah, a safe environment. It's their favorite time probably of their day. And yet there are adults out there saying, "Well, this is just drill and kill." No, it's not.
Another aspect, I think, of the way our method comes to the students that I hear people express concerns about is that we're maybe anti-technology or what we're doing is outdated for a child who may go into a world that is very different from where
Jess, you work for an online school. We do use technology.
I didn't know this about her. We better shut this down right now and repair this problem.
You founded it.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, Martin did found the Online Academy.
Well, there's technology and there's technology. Okay,
Perfect
screens.
Point.
It's not technology. This is technology. A book is a technology.
Yeah.
A pencil, a pen is a technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something you use to do something. But we're talking about computer technology, screens, that this helps you learn to do something, whereas screens oftentimes do so many things for you. The whole critique of AI is that it's replacing people and it's doing things that, But I think there's a really growing understanding right now that screens are bad. The research says it.
And we did an episode on that a couple months ago.
It's substantial, the consensus that is forming about that.
And particularly in the domain of education, right? Mm-hmm. Like the whole goal of education is maybe not whole goal. I recently was trying to draw a distinction on the essence of education, so I have to be careful about my words here. But a massive part of what we're doing in education is for the student to have the skills to be able to think, right? And if we're outsourcing that to something else, that's a problem, right? But folks in classical times thought outsourcing your memory to a piece of paper was a bad idea. And in some ways, it is, right? That's what Tanya was doing in high school. She was outsourcing her memory, what she was hearing from somebody, putting it on a piece of paper, just memorizing those words, not even thinking about it, right? But it can be used tremendously to your advantage. However, I think the research is showing that when it comes to computers who are doing more than just you putting it down on something and you working through it, right? That's where what you're being fed is some form of doom scrolling or entertainment rather than actually trying to get you to exercise those skills that you're trying to learn.
Like if you needed to write a speech and you wrestled with that speech on a computer and wrote it, rewrote it, edited it, wrote it again, versus saying to AI, I need to speak on this, and it writes it for you. Then you've put no effort in. You don't really own that speech if AI has written it. And it is not, I just find it appalling. And to think, we've talked about memorization, but now we don't feel like we need to we don't need to know anything because I can Google anything and get the answer. I don't have to have any knowledge inside my head. So what does that do? That's a science fiction movie right there.
And especially when we think about the difference between, we are talking about children in a classroom.
Yes.
They don't have the foundational skills that an adult may have when they're going to a particular mode of technology. They don't know how to write a speech. They don't know.
Yeah, and it's not just AI. It's also like for decades, people have tried to educate children through watching a movie, right? Or watching a video.
Game on an iPad.
Right? Or, which has no interaction. The child thinks they're interacting because they're sitting there looking at a TV or something. The adult thinks the child's interacting, but it's not the same as a teacher that stops and says, okay, Johnny, tell me, what we just read, a chapter. Tell me what was the big thing that happened in that chapter. That's not happening when you watch a recorded lecture or something like that.
And it's not that it can't be done. I mean, it was a very early form of computer technology, and it was the Geo Safari. And it was this little plastic thing, and there were different cardboard things that were in there, and then there were all these things down the side that the card all referred to, and you'd program in, just tell the computer what card you're using, so you could memorize geographical facts. And my daughter in particular just spent hours on that memorizing. It was a great application of that partly because it was primitive, so primitive, and computer technology can help you memorize. It can even drill you in certain things if it's done right. But the problem is there's so many other things these, our advanced computers can do, and you go off into this or that. But in any case, it can't help you because really there's three things you're doing in education. You're teaching, you're helping them acquire content knowledge. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're helping them to acquire skills, mm-hmm. and you're helping them to understand ideas and values. Mm-hmm. And on that third thing, computers can help on the other two if it's done right, which it often isn't. But the understanding of ideas and values, that requires discussion. Mm-hmm. Computer's not going to do that for you at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you think, going back to high school, if you are in a Latin translation course and you let AI translate for you, you've learned nothing.
And Google Translate is always wrong. I've seen too many Latin cheaters. They get caught every time because it's just comical. They can't do it.
That brings us back to the online academy. So yes, we're using technology, but we're using it to give students who don't have the opportunity or don't want the opportunity to be in a classroom with a live teacher. It does give them a live teacher. It gives them a person mm-hmm. talking to them about the ideas and the values Definitely. And helping them to bring their education alive. Mm-hmm. So how else would you do that?
Right.
If, but at least it is live.
Right.
And it's an actual person mm-hmm. speaking to them. Mm-hmm. But we are, technology does have its uses.
Right.
We don't hate it.
Mm-hmm. It's a tool. It's a tool, and it shouldn't be the master.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lie that what I've seen in some schools and classrooms with technology is, technology allows us to differentiate and meet each child where they're at. Mm. I'm sorry. And you have a class of 15, 30 kids,
right.
And everyone's got a device and it's all supposed to be tailored to them. Those kids are not learning. Mm-hmm. They're merely watching videos, and they might retain a tiny fraction mm-hmm. of something that they see. But
then you've replaced that teacher, that valuable teacher who needs to be standing up there imparting passion mm-hmm. For the knowledge that they are giving to students. And that is so sad to me when I mm-hmm. see even the use of a document reader, mm-hmm. I find just not nearly the same mm-hmm. as a teacher standing up there asking a question mm-hmm. and getting, discussing the answer with the mm-hmm. students rather than just, here's the question and here's the answer, copy it down. Mm-hmm. That is not the intention.
Mm-hmm. Right. And some of it's just the application of that, right? To have a document reader where you put the text underneath so everybody can see it and we can all refer to it, and teachers up there pointing at what's on the screen. Like that's a very different thing. But the vast majority of times we go into a classroom and we see somebody using a document reader, they're sitting there right next to the document reader and they're not moving around the classroom. They're not up in engaging the students. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things is you bring in a tool that's designed to alleviate the teacher's work. What does the teacher do? The teacher becomes more and more passive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the technology is the master.
Yeah, well, it's, again, ethos, logos, and pathos, right? You got the teacher up in front of the room. They're a person mm-hmm. with a soul, and mm-hmm. they're teaching students who have their own souls, and they're being developed, and they're looking at the teacher as some kind of a model, right? That's sort of the ethical function mm-hmm. of teaching. And then you have logos, which is the actual learning that you have to impart from here to here, and you do it by doing things that efficiently do that. Mm-hmm. Drill and memorization and all that other stuff. And then you got pathos. A good teacher will be able to help them see the beauty of what they're doing mm-hmm. when they're doing stories in the class, and you bring their attention to some beautiful scene in a book, because it just tracks the good, the true, and the beautiful. That's what you're doing, and that requires different kinds of things, and among them are memorization mm-hmm. and drill and that sort of thing, and the questions and answers.
Mm-hmm. And the outcome with what you described is that you're teaching to the students' head, but you're also teaching to their heart.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people can think classical education is big brain on a stick, mm-hmm. but no, you know what I'm saying?
I haven't heard that.
You're not just a brain on a stick. You have a soul.
Brain on a stick. I'm going to write that down.
Well, no, don't quote me. It's from James K.A. Smith. Anyway, he's a philosopher. But the point I'm making is that we're not just brains on a stick, in the words of James K. A. Smith. We have hearts that move us forward into the world to make very particular choices. And especially as we think about launching students into the world, after we've formed their brains, it's not an afterthought to think, oh, and then they're going to go out there and like be in a community, and they have hearts too. And we're forming those with the content, with our teaching. And it also leaves room, certainly, for the teacher and the student to invoke creativity, especially with what you described, using different methods and drawing out the beauty in things. I hear sometimes that people think, well, that's just not very creative, what you're having them do.
It's a relationship. It's called a relationship.
Yeah.
Chaos is not creative.
No.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Well, your brain on a stick. Chaos is not creative.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for this discussion, guys. This was a good one on method.
And don't you like that Martin dressed like me today?
You
with
are
our
kind of
navy
alike.
blazers.
I call her every morning, ask her what she's wearing.
Next time we do this, just let me know, and I'll tell you what color to wear.
Okay. Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.